Hi there, my name's April Milne from United Cultures of Canada Association. Today I'm going to be presenting about mental health, in particular the topic of stress. And this is based on the project for improving Newcomer mental health through education and community service. And so this presentation was developed by Dr. Polichala and delivered by myself, April Milne. As a disclaimer, the presentation being provided today is developed to provide basic information and create public awareness and education about common mental health concerns. This presentation doesn't offer professional advice or counseling advice, but does have research backing its use for public education and knowledge. About the author. The person who has graciously created this presentation is Dr. Polly Chawla, who's a registered provisional psychologist in Alberta. She has many years of experience as a clinician, especially specializing in PTSD, complex trauma, and other psychiatric conditions as well. And for myself, I currently work as a mental health therapist in the Edmonton, Alberta community. I currently hold a master's degree in counseling from City University here in Edmonton. And in my practice, I primarily focus with adults in individual therapy with a wide range of concerns from anxiety, depression to grief and loss and life transitions. So it's a pleasure to provide this presentation on stress today. And that's exactly what this presentation is going to be about, is the concept and the psychology of stress. And we're really going to be going over what are the different types and causes of stress and how can this show up in a person's life, especially for immigrants and newcomers coming into Canada. So, when talking about stress, it's important to really define what that is. And so, stress is really defined as the body's natural response to pressure, to challenge, or even strain. And it happens when we feel that the demands that we have, the challenges that we have and that we are facing are greater than our ability to cope with it. And so this can lead to physical, mental, and emotional strain. And this can be caused by a variety of different factors in a person's life, such as life events and relationship. And stress can really manifest in a variety of ways, both impacting our thoughts, our feelings, our behavior, and can show up in many different issues, such as irritability, tension, and even health-related issues as well. So, stress can really come from many different areas in a person's life. Common causes of stress that which we're going to be going into are as seen as the slides. One that can be very common is work-related stress. And so when a person is in a workplace where there is high performance, higher or heavier workloads, maybe there is deadlines for specific tasks and projects, this can create feelings of stress. As well, workplace environments, maybe one that is filled with conflict with other colleagues or managers, or even having a sense of a lack of control over one's projects and work can contribute to feelings of stress. As well, outside of work, personal life challenges can also contribute and trigger significant stress in a person's life, whether it be conflict, changes, or difficulties in personal relationships with family, friends, and partners. Even going through major life transitions and life changes, even financial changes, can have a personal impact and create significant stress in a person's life. Outside of this, too, we have environmental factors, which can also play a part in a person's experience, such as navigating new living conditions or poor living conditions, our environment and where we're staying, if it's filled with high stimulation or high noise, pollution, all these different factors can contribute to forms of stress that a person can experience in their life. Other sources or causes of stress include academic stress. So, for many persons who are attending courses, workshops, or going to university or post-secondary, many students may often experience stress with academic pressures, especially with completing and finishing exams, assignments, or readings. And especially with this, there may be a certain level of stress or fear with performance and ability to improve themselves, and may fear failure. So academic stress can definitely impact a person. Other causes of stress includes health issues. And so for a person experiencing whether it be physical pain, joint pain, underlying health conditions, or even chronic illnesses, the development and the persistence of these physical conditions and health issues can create and contribute to significant stress in a person's life. And lastly is technology and the internet. Technology and the internet can have positive impacts in a person's sense of connection with the world around them, but it also can lead to significant stress. For example, having the access to constant news, constant media, and connectivity can lead to what's called an emotional overload, where we feel very overwhelmed or very stressed by the amount of media and technology that we're exposed to. And especially throughout generations, technology has significantly advanced. And through these advancements in society and the changing technologies, the ability to keep up with all of these changes and advances can lead to stress, especially if it's something that's new and not something we've experienced in the past. And so those are the different types of stress, or causes of stress. And now we'll be talking about the different types of stress. Firstly, a person who experiences what's called acute stress is where a person has a brief moment of stress, and this is caused by immediate threats, problems, or challenges in a person's life. So this short-term stress can be in low and medium levels. Short-term stress can help us stay alert and focused, but when it starts to become a problem is when it becomes long-lasting and chronic over time, which is what is called chronic stress. And this is where we experience stress ongoing, that is very persistent and for an extended period of time. And this is where a person can feel that stress starting to impact their everyday functioning and their responsibilities to family, to work, to school, to children. It really starts to impact and impede in areas of life. Another type of stress is what's called episodic acute stress. So basically, what this means is where a person experiences, rather than just one moment of time of stress, a frequent occurrence of brief stress episodes. And so this becomes more occasional. A person may feel rushed or overwhelmed, and this pattern can prevent the body and a person from returning to a place of calmness or stillness. And lastly, another type of stress is what's called traumatic stress. And this is specific stress caused by traumatic events, whether it be accidents, disasters, abuse, or violence. And so this can really impact a person's ability to feel safe, feel connected, and it's a more higher intensity form of stress compared to chronic stress. So very, very similar in that way, but different. And so, stress in and itself, when we talk about chronic stress, it is important to understand how this stress shows up for a person. And one way to understand that is through what's called the fight and flight response. And so, when we perceive a stress, a challenge, or a threat, our brain naturally triggers this fight or flight response. And this is an automatic reaction our body has in moments of stress. Our heart rate increases, our muscles start to tense up, we may have difficulty breathing. Our breathing might really be quite quick. Our heart starts pounding. And certain hormones are released through this time. And this is where the sympathetic nervous system, our fight or flight response, is activated. And so certain hormones start to be released during this time. And this is where, as I said, our heart rate, our blood pressure, our alertness really starts to come up for us. And when it comes to this fight or flight response, it's something that has been shown and seen across history for humans and has been helpful in the past for survival. When threats are coming, we need to prepare for action. And In today's world, threats can be anything that can be perceived as dangerous or stressful, including deadlines, emails, or even traffic jams. And so, regardless, our body still reacts the same way in creating and having, or even activating this fight or flight response in times of stress. And this is just a diagram that kind of shows how the body goes through chronic stress. And so when we feel calm and grounded, we are in what's called our social engagement system or our parasympathetic nervous system. So this is where we feel connected, we feel grounded, we feel safe, as seen on the bottom of the page. When we start to experience stress and it starts to become chronic stress, so persistent over a long period of time, we enter that um, fight or flight stage. And for many people, this can include physical tension, tightness in the jaw. We may feel intense emotions such as panic, fear, anger, or frustration. And when this stress persists without a sense of relief, when that chronic stress becomes so ongoing and overwhelming, a person may collapse into what's called a freeze response. And so this is the body's state of really shutting down. A person may feel numb. They may feel a loss of energy. They may feel trapped in what they're feeling. And this is where, our nervous system tries to cope in the moment with the stress by shutting down. And so this is an example of what that stress response could look like. And so, what are the impacts of stress? We talked about the causes and types, and now we're going to look at what are the implications of stress. And so, stress can have a really big impact on our physical health. It can weaken our immune system. We have more susceptibility to getting sick or getting illness. We may have digestive issues, appetite changes as well. And we may have issues sleeping, with body tension being included in that. Stress can also have a very big impact on our mental health, either the development or even increasing or intensifying persisting mental health conditions such as anxiety and depression. Stress as well, especially chronic stress, can impact our ability to make decisions. We may have difficulties focusing, difficulties in concentration. We may lose our train of thought. This can be really difficult when stress impacts our ability to navigate making decisions in our everyday life. Stress can also have an impact on relationships. This may increase our, difficulties with our own emotions and our emotional connectivity with other people. We may find it's harder to connect with our communities, our relationships, and the people that matter in our communities and within our culture and our society. And we may experience a strain in our personal relationships due to the impact of stress. And lastly, stress can also impact our performance at work or volunteering. As I mentioned before, stress can impact our ability to concentrate, our ability to complete tasks with decision making and productivity being tied into that. And stress can also reduce our sense of fulfillment and satisfaction in our workplace. And so stress really comes in a whole cycle. Stress just does not end on its own. With the stress cycle, the body needs to complete the stress cycle in itself. And so on the top right of the screen, we can see that certain triggers or events that are perceived as threatening cause significant stress. How this is perceived for us, so our perception and how we interpret and perceive the stressor, creates and activates that fight or flight response, which is our stress response, as we talked about. And from there, we engage in what's called coping strategies. So when we notice that stress comes up for us, what are some things we can do to manage that stress? And for some individuals, we're able to find and develop coping strategies. And when this happens, we can engage in what's called a feedback loop, where we're able to learn from these experiences. And this can influence how we respond in the future to stress. When a person struggles with chronic stress, sometimes it can be really difficult to cope with the stress response, and we may feel that the cycle is incomplete or maybe stuck. And so it's really important to show to really show, what are some different coping strategies for stress, but also to recognize how do I know when stress is becoming so much for me to handle. And so, summarizing a little bit about these symptoms of stress to really recognize and be aware of is how it impacts the body, our emotions, and our behavior and how we act in our everyday life. And so, as I mentioned, physically, we may experience headaches, tension, body pain, digestive issues. Emotionally, we may feel a sense of overwhelm, restlessness, or irritability. And behaviorally, we may have difficulties with motivation, forgetfulness, procrastination. And for some individuals who find it very difficult to cope with stress, may engage in unhealthy coping strategies, such as engagement in substance abuse or even withdrawing socially from other people, especially in their communities. And so, as we talked about stress and the stress cycle, it's important to recognize how these symptoms show up. And by recognizing these signs and symptoms, it can help prevent us from stress from developing into long-term issues. And so, stress prevention really involves reducing stress before it becomes overwhelming. And so, here are some different examples of how a person can really prevent stress from becoming too overwhelming. One is time management. So making sure that we are, organizing our time, delegating tasks and responsibility to reduce the stress of a high workload, or even really just managing and prioritizing our tasks to reduce that feeling of overwhelmed. Stress prevention can also look like managing our lifestyle, taking care of our physical health, eating a balanced diet, engaging in exercise, or even having enough sleep. Sleep can really impact the body and our ability to rest. And so having enough sleep can also play a part in stress prevention. With stress prevention, maintaining and having a support network can be so important, whether it be from family, friends, religious or cultural communities and leaders, and community groups. Even support groups in the community can be so important into stress prevention. As well, developing different techniques. Relaxation techniques can play a big part of this, whether it be engaging in mindfulness practices, meditation, yoga. All of these different techniques can help the body feel calm and reduce stress levels. And engaging and practicing in these techniques, especially over time, can prevent our stress levels from becoming too much and chronic over time. Boundaries and self-care is another important part of stress prevention. Making sure that we're setting boundaries, whether it be with ourselves and with other people, and learning to say no when we need to. When we feel that we are so overwhelmed, knowing that it's okay to say no at times when we need to. And as well, being able to engage in activities that are meaningful, that bring a sense of relaxation and joy in our life, whether it be engaging in nature, engaging in a spiritual practice, or even just having some time with a family pet or with our family, whatever it is that's going to help and create that self-care. And lastly is the development of a positive attitude or mindset, being able to cultivate a sense of optimism and gratefulness, especially for the things that we have in our lives that are meaningful and have a positive impact. And really being encouraging and compassionate towards ourselves can really help counteract negative stressors in our life as well. And so those are some different examples of stress prevention. And now we're going to talk about stress management and how do we handle stress in healthy ways when we do feel overwhelmed. The first step is really identifying the cause of the stress. What is the stressor that is making me feel stressed? And so recognizing which areas in our life are causing us stress and evaluating the impact and significance of this can be a first helpful step. The next part of stress management is developing healthy coping mechanisms for stress relief, whether it be engaging in meaningful hobbies such as art, going for walks, and exercise, time in nature, maybe it's journaling, talking with a friend. Healthy coping mechanisms can help us really manage stress in the moment. And along with that, communication, being able to share how we're feeling with someone that we trust, a trusted friend or family member, a community member, or if we feel we need more professional support, a therapist or a mental health professional. There's nothing wrong with speaking out about stress, as everyone does experience stress from time to time, and talking about it can be a really big step into helping us manage it. Another way to manage stress, depending on what the stressor is looking at problem-solving skills. So, really working through and identifying specific steps and solutions to addressing the causes of stress. And this can be through writing down specific stress, different solutions or avenues a person can take to resolve the stressor, and really collaborating with other people on how to best approach it. As I mentioned before, time for self-care, engaging in meaningful activities that take care of both the mind and the body, and seeking professional help, especially if we start to notice that stress is becoming overwhelming, it starts to impact our daily functioning. Knowing it's okay to reach out to your doctor or your GP or a mental health professional for support and guidance. And so, as a summary of coping strategies, healthy lifestyle coping strategies are important. Rest, diet, exercise, and relaxation techniques, such as deep breathing exercises. Social support is another helpful coping strategy. Sharing our concerns with those who we trust, engaging in social activities, maintaining our relationships, seeking help from community members, support groups in the community, friends and family are important. Time management, making sure that we can break down bigger tasks into smaller steps, prioritizing our tasks and setting realistic goals for ourselves, and knowing it's okay when necessary if we're able to delegate some tasks to someone else, and learning to say no when we do need to set some boundaries with other people. Problem solving, as we talked about, identifying what are some things that are causing me stress? What are some solutions I can take to manage the stress, and really implementing and evaluating how those solutions work. And so, really summarizing from today is the importance of making sure that we seek help if we do need that support, that guidance, that support and intervention, if we find that it's really difficult for us to manage stress on our own. When we find that that stress cycle is stuck, when we're not able to find those coping mechanisms or receive the support we need in managing it, knowing that it's okay to look into the supports in our community, whether it be psychologists or therapists. And so, as a conclusion for our presentation today, stress is a natural and automatic experience. Each person, each human in life experience stress to a variety of demands and pressures. But when that stress becomes too much for too long and starts to impact our functioning, that's when it starts to really impact us. And so, understanding the psychology of stress, the causes, the types of stress, and the impacts it has on our body, our mind, can help us develop effective coping strategies. And by taking proactive steps to prevent and also manage stress, we can really improve our overall well-being. And so we're really in looking at these prevention strategies and stress management strategies, we can learn just to create a sense of well-being in our everyday life. All right. Thank you so much for this presentation today about the psychology of stress. I'm April Milne, and thank you so much for taking a part of this presentation.